What's going on, guys? So in this video I'll be reviewing the Nakamichi Shockwave 7.2.4 Soundbar surround system. So if you watch my channel, you may have seen the unboxing I did a few weeks ago. I'll go ahead and throw a link on the screen for you guys if you're interested in seeing the whole unboxing experience. But in this review video, I'll give you some details about how the system works. I'll show you how to set it up, and more specifically, how I set mine up. And of course, I'll give you a demo on the sound, and then my overall pros and cons of the system. Now, I use my system primarily for gaming, but I also use it as a home theater as well, because I really enjoy watching 4K movies on my 65-inch LG OLED TV. So before I get into the review, let me give you guys a brief background on Nakamichi and soundbars in general, in case you aren't familiar. So Nakamichi is a company that's been around since 1948. They started out as a research and development firm in electronics and optics, but nowadays they specialize in soundbars. Now, soundbars were originally intended as an easy way to get quality audio. Basically, you'd put this very long speaker under your TV, and it would act as a center speaker and side speakers. Companies eventually added subwoofers to the mix, and you'd end up with sound that's much better than TV audio, but still not quite as good as a real surround sound system. So this is where Nakamichi comes into play. They make soundbar systems that include easy to set up surround speakers, and ultimately give full-fledged surround sound systems a run for their money. So let's go ahead and really dive into this review. As I mentioned, I have the Nakamichi Shockwave 7.2.4 soundbar surround system. This system uses a combo of a soundbar, 2 wireless subwoofers, and 2 surround sound speakers to create a 7.2.4 system. They also have a variety of other configurations. Now, in case you're not familiar with what 7.2.4 means, let me explain. So the 7 means there are 7 channels. You have the center, the front left, the front right, and 4 surround channels. The 2 means there's 2 subwoofers, and the 4 means there are 4 height channels. The height channels are useful for Dolby Atmos and DTS:X, which are sound formats that give you sound from above. Now, before I show you my actual setup, let me give you some quick tech specs. The system can get as loud as 106 decibels and can get as powerful as 800 watts. It also supports Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, Dolby Vision, and 4K HDR. Another thing to mention is that Nakamichi uses their SSE technology to create the entire soundstage. SSE stands for Spatial, Surround, and Elevation. This basically means you're going to hear sound from every direction. So let me go ahead and show you my setup so you can get a better idea of what exactly is going on. So as you can see here, I have the system set up in my living room. Now, unfortunately, my living room is pretty large because it has a vaulted ceiling, as you can see, but the Nakamichi system hasn't had any issues giving me great sound. So let's start at the front of the room. Here's the soundbar, and this is obviously where all the magic starts at. Now, if we take a look at the back of the soundbar, you can see all of the different ports. So first, we have the spot where you can plug in your power, which is pretty self-explanatory. And then you've got your spot where you can plug in your optical, USB thumb drive, coaxial, or auxiliary cord. Next up, you've got HDMI ports 1 and 4. Now, HDMI port 1 is for plugging in your TV, and HDMI port 4 is an input for whatever device you want to use, like a Chromecast, a PS4, whatever you want. And then last but not least, you've got HDMI ports 2 and 3, which you can use to plug in 2 more devices. And just by the way, Nakamichi says HDMI ports 2 and 3 are the best ports to use if you're going to be plugging in game consoles. So now if we look at the top of the soundbar, you've got a power button, an input changer, and volume controls. So here on the front of the soundbar, you've got a screen in the middle that gives you some details on what the soundbar is currently doing. For example, when you're changing the volume, you'll see that change here on the screen. And then the front of the soundbar also clearly has speakers. This will provide audio for your center and front channels. The side of the soundbar actually has tweeters, as you can see, which help with the surround sound effects and gives your audio basically a wider soundstage. Now, if we come to the back of the room, you'll see my first subwoofer and surround sound speaker. Now, the subwoofer is wireless, which is super nice. Of course, you'll still have to plug in your power cord, but at least you don't have to run a speaker wire from the soundbar to your subwoofer. And as you can kind of see, it would be pretty difficult to run a speaker wire in this room. I'd either have to run under the door or over the door, and it just gets really messy and annoying. And especially if you live in a place that you don't own, it gets kind of tricky, and it's just easier for everything to be wireless. Now here you can see the surround sound speaker. Now the surround sound speaker isn't technically wireless, but the speaker wire connects from the subwoofer to the surround sound speaker. So there's not much cable as long as you keep your subwoofer close by to your surround sound speaker, which is obviously what I'm doing here. And my cable management isn't the best, but you know, it is what it is. It's behind my couch, so nobody's ever going to see it, so it's not a big deal. And another thing to mention while we're looking at the surround sound speaker is you can actually mount it vertically or horizontally. If you mount it vertically, it's kind of just like a standard surround sound speaker. Now if you mount it horizontally, you can see the speakers are actually facing upwards now. So the idea there is that your speakers are facing the ceiling, and your sound basically bounces off the ceiling and comes back down to you to create the DTSX and Dolby Atmos effects of your height channels. So over here is my other subwoofer and surround sound speaker. I have the same setup over here. It's just basically on the other side of the room. So you have your left and right subwoofer, and you have your left and right surround sound speakers. So that's about it for the system, and as you can see, it's pretty easy to set up. And now before we get into the rest of the video, let me go ahead and show you the features of the remote real quick. It's a pretty standard remote, but of course it has some buttons that are customized to the Nakamichi system. The most important button is probably the direct button, which allows you to change what sound processing technology is being used for the content you're playing. Other than that, the remote has the ability to change all of the typical things like treble, bass, subwoofer level, volume, and all those other standard things. So let's go ahead and do a demo. Now obviously I won't be able to capture exactly what the system sounds like through a YouTube video, but I'll give you a quick sound comparison of my TV speakers versus the Nakamichi system when playing COD. I'll also put some links in the description for some other YouTube videos that people made where they give a demo of the Nakamichi sound. And again, it isn't the best representation of the sound, because sound is best experienced in person, but it should give you an idea what's going on and that the sound system is legit.
Target is a white 12-story apartment building. Over. Hunter 2-1, this is Warlord. Solid copy. I have Devil 1-1, flight of 2 F-15s online. Stand by for relay. Hunter 2-1, this is Devil 1-1, flight of 2 F-15s. Time on station 15 mics, holding at 3 Sierra Northwest. Holding area knife. Carrying 2 JDAMs and 2 Hans. Over. Standing by. Devil 1-1, target is a white 12-story apartment building at grid 252171. I need you to level that building. How copy, over? Solid copy, Hunter 2-1. Rolling it down. Target acquired.
So as you could clearly tell from the demo, the Nakamichi surround sound system sounds much fuller, and you can actually hear the sound coming from every direction, whereas the TV speakers only come from in front of you. The biggest benefit here, especially when gaming, is that you can hear when people sneak up behind you, or when there are gunshots behind you, or really in any situation where you need to hear sound from above or behind you. This not only makes everything sound more realistic, but it literally gives you an edge up on the competition because you don't have to rely on your vision for everything. There are other games like NBA 2K20 where you don't really need surround sound, but it really helps you immerse you in the atmosphere of the crowd and makes you feel like you're actually on the court. So at this point, you're probably like, okay, so surround sound is beneficial, but why should I buy the Nakamichi system versus building my own traditional surround sound system with a receiver, speakers, and speaker wire? Well, let's go ahead and get into the pros and cons of the system, and that should help answer that question. So starting with the pros, I think the most obvious and biggest pro to the system is that it's incredibly easy to set up. And it's not just because it's easy, but because it's easy and also gives you a full surround sound system. There are plenty of soundbar systems that are easy to set up, but they don't give you the full surround sound setup with Dolby Atmos, DTSX, and all the other good stuff that Nakamichi brings to the table. My second pro, and this kind of goes along with the first, is that the subwoofers are completely wireless. This means you don't have to run speaker wire around your room, which is probably the single most annoying part of setting up a surround sound system. You know, in certain setups, it can be incredibly hard to get speaker wire to the back of a room, and since the subwoofers are wireless in this setup, you can just set them up wherever you want to, and then plug in your surround sound speakers to your subwoofers. My third pro is that it really does sound good, and the bass hits hard. For $1,000, the system is definitely giving you a bang for your buck. The two subwoofers are honestly a game changer. I mean, systems I've had in the past only had one subwoofer, but having two subwoofers really shakes the room around you, and it doesn't leave any low frequencies left to be desired. When someone tosses a grenade at you while you're playing COD online, you're definitely going to feel it. And if you turn up your bass and your subwoofer loud enough, you'll probably even feel it in your chest, which honestly, at that point is probably too loud, but I'm just trying to convey that, you know, the subwoofers, they are legit, and having two subwoofers is, as I said, it's a game changer. It's something I never really thought about, but I'm really glad I have it now. So of course there are other minute details I could get into, but I think those are the three biggest pros you should know about if you're interested in this system. So now for the con, and that's right, I said con because I only have one con. And so the first and only con about the system is the fact that you aren't going to be able to easily upgrade your system in the future. When you set up a traditional surround sound system with a receiver and speakers, you can easily upgrade either one in the future without having to replace your entire system. Whereas the Nakamichi obviously has limits. I mean, it's basically a surround sound system in a box. You can't just go out and buy different speakers or more speakers because you want more. You're basically stuck with what you got. And unless Nakamichi pushes out a software update that gives the system more power, you're always going to be stuck with 800 watts. Now, Nakamichi very well could, and probably will, push out software updates that improve the system. But my point is that there's only so much customization you can do. It's really just limited to what Nakamichi lets you do. So that's just something to keep in mind. It probably doesn't affect most people and doesn't bother most people. But it's just something to keep in mind. If you really want that full customization, you're probably never going to get it with the Nakamichi surround sound system. Alright guys, so that's pretty much all I've got. Overall, I think it's a great surround sound system. If you're looking for something that's easy to set up, but also gives you super accurate surround sound, I highly suggest you look into this system. Before getting this Nakamichi system, I actually had my own custom surround sound setup that was fully compatible with Dolby Atmos, but I've disassembled that entire system now and basically put it away in my attic, just because the Nakamichi system sounds so good, and it was really easy to set up, and it's actually pretty clutter-free because you don't have to, run speaker wire everywhere. So as always guys, thanks for watching, and I hope this video helps you out. Of course, if you have any questions about the system, feel free to ask me down in the comments below, and I'll also leave a link to the Nakamichi system in case you're interested in picking it up. And again, thanks for watching guys, and hope you have a great day.